Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Chatting with Jocelyn. I'm your host, Jocelyn, and my guest today is Miss Di Lothrop. Welcome.
Thank you.
And we have a lot of intersecting, similar life happenings. And my mom is English. She was born in England, in Wimbledon. And I spent 6 years over there. My dad went over. And all of us went with him, and we lived in many, many different places in England, ending up in London, in South Kensington. And I thought, wouldn't this be wonderful to have Di come and let's talk about what was life like in England? Where did you grow up? What did we do? People think it's just, oh, jolly England and the Queen and everything's tea and crumpets and everything's just lovely. And it is lovely, especially when we grew up. Things were very nice. It's changed quite a bit. I have family there, you have family there, and things are not quite so nice as many places in the world. But I thought it would be fun to talk about what we did over there, specifically the freedoms that we have that kids here didn't have and don't have. The opportunities we had to travel, the opportunities just in everything, culture, art, that's not readily available here unless you live in a big city. So welcome again.
Thank you.
So where were you born?
I was born in Liverpool.
Oh.
And the Beatles.
The Beatles.
It was a fun time. In my teens, I was part of the swinging 60s.
Mm-hmm. So Austin Powers type?
Well, because Austin Powers, Austin Powers, Mike Myers, is it, though, who plays Austin Powers? His father was from Liverpool, and that's where he got his sense of humor from. Is the Liverpudlian sense of humor is different. We were just a fun-loving people. I grew up. I have an older sister and a younger brother. Mom and dad, and in the next street. And by the way, I lived in Kensington, Liverpool, so that was the area. Kensington to Kensington.
This is getting a little eerie here.
So I had an aunt and uncle in the next street, and cousins, and it was just we were very much family. It was a family atmosphere, and every year, Mom and Dad would take us on a holiday.
Yes.
Called vacations here, and we usually always go to Wales. It's a beautiful,
up north.
Yeah, and it was just it was how do I put this? There was no worries. I mean, it was a perfectly normal childhood. I mean, we'd play in the street. And played cricket in the street, and we would just
no helicopter parents.
No
You knew when to come in.
Exactly.
You also knew that if you messed up, there were 10 people on the street that were going to lay you out, and then go home and tell your mom and dad.
Oh yes,
and you better have gotten home first before they did.
Yes. I can recall a couple of times, and being sent to the room, to my room, and
being
that was our little.
So talk to me. So when we went to England, I think I was 8, and first time where were we? Epsom. And so I had to go, it was coming in the middle of the year, so you had to go to whatever school you could go to. And I remember taking one of those buses to the school, and it was a good 45 minutes, not a school bus, it was a bus.
Yeah.
And kids here don't understand that, except kids in the city. They know they take trains and buses. Well, we take real trains and buses. So I took a bus, and I remember having my younger brother, he was 5 or 6. We'd get on the bus, and we'd go to school, and I remember we had these awful brown uniforms. Horrendously ugly. Oh, it was the most awful. And the head of the school was a minister or something. We were only there for 3 or 4 months, thank goodness. But the ugliest uniform I'd ever have. And I just remember that. And lunch was just always cold. And I remember the little books, and you'd have to neatly write in your books, and then you'd have to blot it. Because it was a religious school, so you couldn't write with a ballpoint pen. Yeah. You had to write with a dip pen or a fountain pen.
Yeah.
And then you had to blot it so it didn't smear everywhere.
Yeah,
so we did that, and then the next year I switched. They went to private school, and I couldn't get into a private school. There was no room, so I went to the Sacré-Cœur, and that was a French Catholic school with French Catholic nuns. The uniform was nicer, it was a prettier color. There was, remember the striped linen dress, and then you had to wear your blazer in the spring and the summer. So we had that, and the straw hat in the summer. And then in the winter, we had to have the felt hat and the tie. And you had to kneel down and see whether your skirt touched the floor. If your skirt didn't touch the floor, you better hope she didn't have a ruler in her hand.
Well, my school, because I lived in the city, I would walk to school.
Okay.
And through snow, and I'm just kidding, but
5 miles
we
up,
did have
5
snow.
miles down, sleet in the
But so I walked to school, and my our school uniform was very. I mean, I didn't go to a Catholic school, so it was more of a state school, and it was navy blue skirt with a white shirt and a red tie, and navy blue blazer. Mm-hmm. And so that wasn't bad.
That's not bad.
That wasn't bad. Mm-hmm. No. So
you never had fights in the morning about what you were going to wear.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. The only fights I had in the morning was if because my sister is like 18 months older than me, and so a lot of people thought we were twins. Mm-hmm. I ended up being the more prettier one, but that's a big joke in the family. But because we were so similar in size, she would sometimes, steal my shirt or my blazer or something. So that was the only fight that maybe we had in the mornings. But it's so we did not have to take a bus. But yes, there's no school bus for the children who went to school in the country.
Correct.
Took regular buses. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
the public transportation in England obviously is, because it's a smaller area, it's the only way to get around, or they take trains, the trains. But I was fortunate that I could walk, and so that I would get to come home at lunchtime, and Mum would always be there, and she'd give us our lunch, and then we
go back again.
And we had like an hour and a half for lunch,
which was nice.
Which was very nice.
Not the 15 minutes these poor kids have now, where they're shoveling down the food, indigestion, no care for. Digesting your food, relaxing with your friends. It's one thing I do hate about the American public schools.
Yeah. But after school, then we got into the swinging 60s. The music scene in Liverpool. The River Mersey runs through Liverpool, so. That's why it was called Merseyside. Well, still is called Merseyside, and so I, being of the right age at the time, I loved going to dancing, and I followed all the groups. I was a member of the Cavern Club.
Oh.
And so I never saw the Beatles at the Cavern, but I did see them, and I did know them. I knew them. In fact, George Harrison's mom and dad were best friends of my best friend's mom and dad. Wow. So and that's I mean, exciting. Some of the like Jerry and the Pacemakers. Jerry's. It was his girlfriend at the time was best friend to my sister. I mean, some of the groups, you know, like the Mersey Beats and the Searchers. The Searchers in our street, the driver who used to drive, and he was actually the drummer too of the group, and he'd drive them around, lived in our street. So it's like I knew most of the bands.
That's
and
very
I was also
exciting.
a go-go dancer.
You were a go-go dancer? I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
Boots and all?
Boots and all, yes,
Oh,
yeah.
that was so much fun.
In fact, I remember one time walking through in Liverpool in the city centre with my sister, and two young girls came up to me and they said, "Are you the go-go dancer at the it was Peppermint Lounge? It was called. It was after the New York Peppermint Lounge, but nothing like the New York one." And I said, "Yeah." And my sister's going, "Oh no, big head. She's going to have a big head." But so I loved the swinging 60s.
Great music, excellent dancing.
Yes.
Such a happy time. There was a time in my life when I was way younger, and Brothers Four and the Palace was very big. Yeah. And there were 6 of us, the Brothers Four and the Palace dancers. And it wasn't quite go-go, but it was same idea. Yeah. And we had male dancers, so that we had partners. So it was lots of fun, and we would do all sorts of different contests. They'd have us do contests because not everybody you wouldn't have enough people for the different things. And that was so much fun, but I think it would be even better being a go-go dancer. That just...
It was fun. It was fun. We had there were cages, you know, 2 cages on either side. My best friend and I were the 2 dancers, and so we would get out there and, you know, dance, and the band would be playing, and but back then it was so, even the music scene, there was no. There was no drunkenness.
Right. I was just going to say that you didn't have the drugs. You didn't have the drunken. Yeah. You didn't have to worry about somebody putting something in your drink.
Exactly.
You could go to the bathroom and come back and not worry that somebody had done something. Yeah. People were ladies and gentlemen, and they were. And I don't mean that in a stuck-up way. I mean that as truly good friends, looking out for each other, and just wanting to escape for that 2 or 3 hours and just have a nice time.
Yeah, because they, I mean, I never drank, you know, and there was, even in the Cavern Club, the famous Cavern Club, they had a what they called a juice bar, and you could get Coca-Cola. My first recollection of a drink, of being in America, was getting the Coke, Coca-Cola, and we always had it in the bottles, you know, and always had a straw.
Yes.
And when you drank Coca-Cola, when I drank Coca-Cola, I felt like an American. I said, I'm going to America one day.
And you did?
Yeah, and I did.
And you did?
Yeah.
Wow.
I came over as a nanny.
Really?
Yeah, 4 children, all under 8. I went out to California. It was an experience.
I bet it was. But how fun.
But my family, I still, you know, they're still over in the UK, but yeah, I've had a pretty interesting life.
That is very exciting. After we were in Epsom, in the 2 schools, and then we moved to London.
Yeah.
And South Kensington, and it was in a big apartment building, and I'd never lived in an apartment before, and that was fun with the big lift and that door,
old-fashioned lift.
And you'd go on holiday once or twice a year. Usually one was within the country, and then the other one, I went to Spain one year, we went to Portugal another year, we went to France one year, we went to Austria one year. And it's just like going to the next state. Everybody thinks it's far away, but you're talking an hour, 2 hours,
Oh, exactly.
tops.
Yeah.
Tops.
Tops.
In an airplane. And just the experience, it's like you guys all go to Florida, but it was just even easier than that. And I remember, God, I think I was 11, and we went to Spain, and you don't drink the water.
Right.
So they bring a big jug of wine, Chianti, to the table, and they don't ask your age. And I just remember getting so tipsy. I remember my dad getting tipsy and walking on the cobblestone, to get back to the hotel. And I remember that there were some donkeys, and it was just so much fun.
Well, and plus, you're so, the UK, such a small island, but it's so close to Europe.
Everything else.
And like you said, I mean, Paris is, 45-minute flight away from
And you can go
London.
through the channel.
And you can go through the channel.
And it's a channel because it's
under the channel.
It's under the channel, channel.
Yeah.
But do you remember the hovercrafts?
Oh, yes. I never went on them myself.
I got near one, but I never got on one.
Yeah.
But so they'd have the hovercrafts. Those are those, I don't know what you call the boats that blew up. And so underneath is like a big balloon, and it blows up and it lifts up in front of you and it hovers.
Yeah.
And it skims across the water. I thought that was the coolest thing in the whole wide world.
I remember one time flying when I was lived over here, and I flew into London so I could, visit family. And the Concorde, the airplane, the Concorde was still flying then. Yeah. And I was in I think a 747 or something like that. And when we pulled up at Heathrow, and there was the Concorde.
Right next to you.
And the Concorde was like tiny. It was like a tiny airplane next to the 747. And, everybody was, whoa.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
That's not the Concorde.
It's not,
but it can't be, but it was.
Gorgeous
I
sleep.
always wanted to fly on that. I was like,
me too.
I was like, I just win a bet or something, and I want to fly on that. I want to fly supersonic, because what's it, 5.5, 6 hour flight? If you don't get high, for regular flying.
For regular flight, it's about a 6 hour flight. We're on the Concorde. It was 2 hours or something.
Somewhere like that.
Just something like that.
That was just exciting, and I remember. So moving to London, and so I was in South Kensington, so all the museums were there, and I could walk to those. So, wow.
Yeah.
We had the Natural History Museum, we had the Victoria and Albert Museum, we had the music hall. I mean, I can't even,
and the Tate,
the science,
also.
Everything. And you could go there every weekend.
Yeah.
And I just love the Natural History Museum and the dinosaurs and everything. And it's, our parents would just say, "Where are you going?" We're going to the museum, and nobody followed us. Nobody went with us.
Yeah.
You would go. You'd spend the day there.
Yeah. And you felt safe.
You were safe.
Yeah, you were safe.
You'd get on the tube.
Yeah.
Which was the underground, or what I don't know what they call them here, the subway.
Yeah. Subway.
And that was fun. It would be jam packed and not quite like New York or China, but it's at 5 o'clock. It would be pretty packed. I remember I had gone to the American school in London, and then I went to the overseas school in London, and one of them, I forget which one, was behind Harrods.
Oh,
and Harrods was in Knightsbridge.
Yeah.
And Harrods is where all the royalty go, and the very rich people and the celebrities, and you'd go through and look at all the exciting things. And I remember, we'd walk, I'd take the number 14 bus, and then we'd walk from Harrods back to the school. And I remember the days when any one of the prince or princesses would come, and they'd shut down Harrods, and you'd have to get out, and you'd be watching through the window, or you're escorted out as they're coming through. And I remember when Donny Osmond and his brothers came.
Oh, gosh.
And I loved,
that was a big deal then.
Donny Osmond. Yeah. And Suzanne, He's mine, not yours. And it's just one of those things. As a kid, you just get these
Yeah.
what's the word? Crushes.
Yes.
And you just
Mine was Paul McCartney. He was my crush. Yeah,
and I can
know.
perfectly
What
see
can I
why.
say?
Why not?
Yeah.
We all had them,
Yeah.
but you could rub elbows with them.
Right. Yes.
There wasn't this nastiness, this I'm better than you.
Right, yeah.
Don't touch me, don't talk to me. Stuff that we see nowadays. We were able to talk to these people, and you didn't get permission, and there wasn't this weirdness of that they were untouchable.
Yeah.
And that was what was so much fun in England and in those days.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned too taking the bus in London. Well, up in Liverpool, which is about 250 miles northwest of London, because I walked to school, but also because we were so close to the town center. So we'd always just go into town. That's what we called it, going into the city. We'd walk. We could take a bus.
We walked everywhere.
Or we walked. And I remember one story my mom and dad talking during the war, the Second World War. Mom and dad dad was in the Royal Air Force, and he was stationed in a place over the water, what we call over the River Mersey, and he's stationed in Sealand. It was an RAF base, and they were visiting his dad. And so one night during the war, they were making their way down to the pier head, which is where they would catch the boat, the ferry boat, over to the other side of the water where they could get to his to the base. And air raid silence came.
Oh.
And so they started running, and there was down the street, there was couple of ammunition lorries, and they had just passed an air raid shelter, which happened to be a pub, but
but underneath.
Yeah, so Dad said, we're not going to make it, let's go into the air raid shelter. As they got to the shelter, the entrance, a bomb dropped on the ammunition lorry. Blew them into the shelter. This is something that, kids nowadays,
have no
even the
concept.
people over here have no concept. And they, and of course it hit the lorries and hit the chaps in the lorries, but their lives were saved. Mom and Dad's lives were saved. By instinct.
Correct.
Dad, said nope, we're not going to make it.
Mom said similar stories when she was in England, and the bombs would drop, and they'd hear the sirens. They'd have to put all the shades down, extinguish all the lights, get under the table, whatever. Right. And her grandmother's house that she remembers was blown up. And she remembers having to walk through the rubble, and people just don't.
Well, we had, even at our house, we had all brick houses, because you very rarely do you see a wooden, wood-made house. Well, we had still pock marks on our wall, the brick on the outside walls from sometimes the airplanes, the German airplanes would, after they bombed in Liverpool, and they were they were flying away, and sometimes they would just, like, I don't know, getting rid of ammunition, or they see people.
They just empty out.
Yeah, so
wow.
War was hell. I was born after the war, so just to let everybody know, I'm not that old,
But the stories that our parents tell you, and my mom tells me.
Oh yeah.
What we'll have to do is bring Mom in and have an English tete-a-tete.
Yeah.
And
have tea and bickies, biscuits, like cookies.
We could have some cucumber sandwiches.
Yes, that too. Jolly good.
Absolutely. So just in the last. Tell me the one food, and I know we can get everything everywhere, but sometimes it's just not the same. But what is the one food you miss? And then I'll tell you what I miss.
Fish and chips.
There's nothing like it. You can't get it here.
No.
Mom says the same thing.
Right.
And especially the vinegar.
Malt vinegar, yes. I actually have malt vinegar in my kitchen cupboard.
Brought it.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, I order it from a British food supply.
That's what we do,
Can't
too.
have chips without
No.
vinegar.
So food-wise, Branston pickle.
Yeah. See,
I love Branston pickle.
Yeah.
But my favorite was a Cadbury's, the stick. I can't think of the Cadbury flake. The Cadbury flake.
Oh gosh, yes.
In
Ice
your
cream.
ice cream.
Yes, ice cream cone. It was called a 99.
Yes, it was.
I don't remember why.
I don't remember
was
why
called-
either,
yeah.
but the Cadbury flake
Soft
in
ice
the
cream.
soft ice cream, there was something
Yeah.
about how it tasted, and the flake was literally flaky, and it was a stick, and it would fall apart in your mouth.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I'd give heaven and earth to enjoy that again, especially
Yeah.
that we'd get those always outside of the museum.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I get a lot of my, well, not a lot, but some food from World Market over in Salem. They have some British food and food from all over the world too.
Oh, I'm going there.
And yeah, I get my bickies from there, and
I love the digestive bickies.
a lot of and HB sauce. You know, yeah. And I think you can get the
Branston pickle.
pickles.
I
from
ordered
there.
it last time from Canada, and it was like $6 a jar, and I can't do that again.
I'll be
'cause that's
cheaper
crazy.
in World Market.
My
yeah.
goodness.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for
You're
coming in.
welcome.
We've had
I
a
enjoyed it.
fabulous half hour. We definitely need to do this again.
Definitely.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jocelyn.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you next time.